But in 2004, Lipitor and Zocor were the #1 and the #2 combined, or respectively, revenue-generating agents of all branded drugs at that time. And together, they represented about $15.5 billion in revenue. And all of us know they went on to do much greater in later years. However, Lipitor alone had 75 million prescriptions in 2004. Now, interestingly, and I'm trying to compare that and contrast that with what I just shared with you about Bideal, is that the West of Scotland coronary prevention study that garnered the approval of statins was studied in a population of 6,595 men that were all lived around and homogeneous and indigenous to Glasgow, Scotland. And as I compared that to the reduction of death, or the 43% reduction of death rate of Bideal, it only had 22% reduction in morbidity rate reduction for this particular study. However, excerpts from these headlines read, "Landmark study reduces the risk of heart attacks and saves lives." And since that time, statins as a class have gone on to become the gold standard of cardiovascular protection and risk reduction. You tell me, is health disparities real? And are we there yet? So then, what industry and Medtronic are doing about it? Industry, as noted earlier, and most healthcare industry foundations are making grants and donations and partnerships in efforts such as the Black Women's Health Program, which is a partnership with the American Medical Association as well as the National Medical Association Disparity Initiatives. In particular, the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, known as PhRMA, which is the trade organization, premier trade organization for pharmaceutical and biotech manufacturers and researchers, has taken a very proactive stance on this issue of health disparities. This organization has been active in providing reports around health gaps. You can go to their website and find reports spanning back for the last 7 to 10 years as they relate to women, to Hispanics, and most recently to African Americans, and supporting their companies to make sure that they're doing research in these specifically disproportionately affected populations. AdvaMed, which is the Advanced Medical Technology Association, which is the trade organization for large medical device and technology companies, which Medtronic is a part of, has not been as vocal of an entity in its stance around health disparities. What they talk about in their mission statement is providing equal care to all people without specifically calling out healthcare disparities. However, some of its member companies have taken a very proactive stand. For example, Boston Scientific has its Close the Gap, which is a cardiac heart initiative, and near and dear to my own heart is Medtronic's very public and active stand in the issue of health disparities. Medtronic, as you know, is the largest medical technology company in the world and has cardiac rhythm and pacing technologies at its origin. And because women experience cardiovascular disease at such a high rate, it's the #1 killer of women in America, but they only receive 33% of cardiovascular available interventions for their care. 65% of Latino Americans with diabetes will die from heart disease or stroke, and African Americans between the ages of 45 and 64 are almost 3 times more likely to die from heart failure than Caucasians of the same age. Because of this healthcare disparities, it's a natural collaboration or provides the perfect opportunity of collaboration with Medtronic in the area of cardiovascular. However, CV is only one of Medtronic's 6 business divisions. And so I am very excited around a February 1st, 2010 initiative that Medtronic has launched called the Every Patient First Initiative in collaboration with the University of Miami. This initiative represents a pan-Medtronic effort that has its missions to help every single patient have and work their very own therapy, to own their own therapy and treatment, and to have active dialogues about their care with their healthcare providers. On the other side of that, the effort is also aimed at helping physicians to practice treatment guidelines unilaterally. So even though treatment guidelines are available to physicians equally, what we know from research in the same body of knowledge from the Health Institute is that it's not applied to all populations the same. I personally came face to face with this reality when years ago in pharma that I was working on obesity research, and I was shocked by a landmark study released in Obesity Research Journal in 2003 of some research by Dr. Gary Foster who is the director of the Obesity Center at Temple University, that said primary care physicians, because of their own biases about the obese, meaning that they're slow, they're lazy, they're ugly, they're awkward, etc., 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 that we're talking about the person behind the white lab coat, that because of these personal biases, that it influenced the practice of medicine to those populations to which those biases were directed. So then, that taken in and applied back to the healthcare disparities argument, then we can understand why it's so important to have visibility of health disparities and take an active stand in other areas. So the program that Medtronic has launched, not only have we done that, but there are countless of other community-based initiatives that are done through the sales field and other employee resource groups that are outside and beyond the scope of this initiative that I've just outlined that are also occurring. So now, finally, the call to action. What can you do? Because I have learned through business school and others that no deal is complete, no speech is complete, regardless of the audience, if you don't answer the what's in it for me question. So this is what's in it for you. What can you do? There are three things that I would propose for you to do. Whether you are a woman or a person of color, it is something and an imperative for all of us to take on. First of all, you've got to be your own advocate. Be an engaged patient who is determined to get every penny's worth out of your copay. Okay? Refuse to leave the doctor's office until every one of your questions get answered. Because of my personal affinity to the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women campaign, I would encourage all the women in the room and men alike to know your numbers. The numbers are your blood pressure, your body mass index, which is your weight in kilograms divided by your height in meters squared. Okay? I won't tell you mine, but I do know what it is. And also your total cholesterol, because all of these are factors, leading factors for heart disease. The second thing I would encourage you to do is to increase your awareness of disparities. Use the internet and the other resources to bolster your knowledge about healthcare disparities. The fact that you're here today tells me that you're either a member of the City Club looking for a lunch, or you're really interested in the talk and the discussion around healthcare disparities. And to quote a dear friend and a business colleague of mine, you can't do what you don't see, and you don't see if you don't look. And he says that all the time to his sales reps, but it's very true here. You can't be a proactive participant in the healthcare disparities debate and ongoing guiding of it without being aware of the issues facing these discussions. Finally, and third, is being an advocate for others. So going beyond yourself and advocating in a synergistic way. Because we all know through volunteerism that 1 + 1 always equals something more than 2. Awareness is useful. Awareness is useless information without the fortitude and the willingness to act. You can act through your career choices, which I hope some of you will do, or involvement in disparity-related volunteer efforts. Mine personally, as I said before, is the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women campaign. The point is, everyone can do something. I'll close with my third and final Martin Luther King quote of the day: "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." So I ask again, just as I started, are we there yet? Clearly not, but through the collective efforts of every single person in this room and others involved in this goal, we can certainly be closer tomorrow than we find ourselves today. So with that, thank you.